All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to Monday Night Law here. Running a little bit late. Got a special guest here tonight for June 10th, 2024. Tony Pellegrino, how you doing, brother?
Good to be on again, bro. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. We're going to discuss a little bit about what's called coordination. And in my mind comes from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, that land may be ceded for specific use, supposed to be for military use, but with the consent of the legislatures of the state. Now, God rest his soul, Fred Kelly Grant, 60 plus years in an attorney, being a member of the bar there, one of the good guys, honestly. I got to meet Fred a few times. We hung out, and Tony hung out with him quite a bit and learned a few things from Fred, and did some of this coordination stuff, which was very effective. Essentially, in a nutshell, it's, hey, you got to have permission from the people, feds, to do anything in our states. It's got to be within the policy that was made. And that's kind of what we'll be discussing here. And Tony's going to be the lead on this stuff, and I'll just kind of follow along with his Word document here. And yeah, over to you, brother. What do you got?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to start with talking about who you are and what you're doing and your new website? The fact that you're going to be here in Idaho, the 17th and 18th, Monday and Tuesday next week?
Yeah, I'm going to be at the Old State Saloon. That's in Eagle, and that is 50 East State Street in Eagle, Idaho, on the 18th and 19th. So it's going to be a Tuesday and Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. And that's the one that got national attention for heterosexual awareness. And they had breeder beer specials. And if you were not a homosexual, you got a free beer on Wednesday. I don't know.
Heterosexual week or month.
Yeah, so I'm going to be there, and I was sharing this process over there too, sharing a lot of other stuff. But anyways, most people know me from the American Common Law Academy, and I basically just merged with David Avila over here in Oakdale, and he started the America's Constitutional Law Group. So I went from the ACLA to the ACLG, but I'm still keeping the ACLA. But so what we're doing is we're getting involved in land patents. Getting people to actually take up true ownership of their property, the meets and bounds, not the real estate, right? Mm-hmm. And we're teaching people how to stand up, and get remedy in their communities. And there's a lot of stuff going on, but recently I was able to file my best version of a remonstrance and petition to the California State Legislature, AB 957, where they do. Basically, we're saying in a nutshell, if let's say you're a Christian parent and you don't believe in transgenderism, the state's going to say, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to take your 12-year-old from you and chop his penis off because he wants to be a girl and because you won't let him. So basically filed a petition with them and to stop that, and a remonstrance to stop that bill. And I told them that the bill was constitutionally defective. And here's why you can't even vote on it, but I can't tell you not to vote. But basically, you can't war against the Constitution while supporting it. That's the Supreme Court ruling, right? Do you remember that one?
Yep.
Is that Aaron versus Cooper or something? But anyways, so I basically says, if you pass this, you violated the point to where, you lost your qualified immunity because now you have entered into deliberate indifference. Ignorance of the law is one thing. Deliberate indifference is kind of like the next step of stupid. And so they were bold enough to do that. So Scott Weiner and Lori Wilson, they created the bill, and so I put the federal lawsuit. So it was kind of like a shit sandwich. It had the petition, a remonstrance, and then it had the federal lawsuit, all the authorities that were going to be in the federal lawsuit. So I said, if you do pass this, we're all going to court. And I'm suing you guys personally in your personal capacity because you're acting in deliberate indifference. And so that is, when Newsom vetoed that bill. His press release says that this bill will not pass the federal courts. And that's why he vetoed it, because, Gavin was the one who started the gay marriage in San Francisco. He was the first guy to do that. So now he's the new scum. They call him new scum out here.
New scum, yes. So the thing is squeaky wheel got the grease there. See, remonstrance, and you put them on notice and say, hey, we're watching and this is unlawful. Right. And so, a little bit worried, right, that something might happen here. And
this isn't a deck of cards. This is all the certified mail to every single senator. All the receipts, all 39 of them on notice. So it was a little bit of a
job, brother. Good job. Again, folks, this is it right here. Taking action, being actively engaged with your legislature, putting them on notice, including the governor, because due process of law here, it's got to go from the legislative branch to the executive branch for what's called gubernatorial veto process. It's a 2-step process for any bill to go through, any legislation, enactments. It's not actually law, it's supposed to be policy. So this is part of our problem with our form of government, is it's all willy-nilly. They don't care about the Constitution because, again, for my followers have heard me say this many times over and over, and I'm going to keep saying it to hammer this stuff home. They've altered the fundamental law from the common law to the Roman civil law, the code. So government in a box, when you unbox a monarchy and their fundamental law being Roman civil law, you open the box of government up and there's no constitutions. That's common. Constitutions go with common law form of government. That's in this box over here. So this box here has Roman civil law, the code, as the law. It doesn't. They don't do constitutions. Monarchy does corporate charters, and that's why United States Inc. Corporation. Right there. There's your prima facie evidence that back under the monarchy. And then Roman civil law, hello, Roman Catholic Church, Catholicism as an ideology versus Christianity as an ideology that holds the laws of nature, the law of nations, the common law as the law, the fundamental law. So that's our main issue, because a lot of this stuff will go away when we go back to common law as the fundamental law. And it's coming. It's slowly happening.
Slowly.
I had a very good conversation with a woman earlier today, about 3-hour conversation. And this woman is working with Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, some other people up there, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell. Okay, and I just spoke to her and shared my knowledge and, blew her away, of course, so to speak. So the fact is we're going to be working together, and some of the things that I've been already doing, okay, my own personal case. So I have standing for cause of action. And then the stuff that Downing has going on with all these affidavits to the attorney generals for criminal conspiracy complaint, putting the attorney generals on notice of how essentially the executive and the judicial branch is conspiring together. They're not doing the grand jury indictments. So that's Fifth Amendment requires that. And all capital or infamous crimes must be prosecuted by presentment or indictment of a grand jury, not prosecution by information. That's Roman civil law. That's how they do that. They don't care about the common law, the principles of the common law, the rules of the common law. They don't care. Again, fundamental law, totally different. Roman civil law does bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties. That's all prosecution by information. If you do this, we say that's a crime, and here's the punishment for that. That's what a bill of attainder or bill of pains and penalties are. So all of your traffic tickets, all that kind of stuff, those traffic infractions, those are bills of pains and penalties. Okay, you've been attained to pay that bill. Who gets the money? They do. They divvy it up amongst themselves. The city police or state police, whoever department writes the ticket, they get a certain portion of the fine. Then the judge who's on that, well, it goes into the judge's retirement fund. So those are unjust enrichments, emoluments violations. Okay, it's embezzlement, it's treason. That's warring against the people. That's domestic violence, internal insurrection, attempt to overthrow the Constitution, war against the people. So this is what we're all being subjected to. And again, I'm trying to spread this awareness and wake people up. That Code of Civil Procedure Act that was done by Congress in 1873. And then in Idaho, it was in the 11th legislative session for the territory of Idaho in 1881. Now, for those who want to do your due diligence out there, go look it up in your legislative session. It's going to be right in there somewhere. Now, somebody had even showed me from New York, was 1854 or 1856, somewhere in there. So they were working on it even before the Reconstruction Acts, which in my mind was part what caused the Civil War. They were trying to alter the fundamental law back then. Yeah, the Civil War was about slavery, but not in the same sense of what we think about abolishing slavery, but to enslave us all. So, a little bit of history for y'all out there. That's why we are where we are now.
Kirk, I've never heard this from anybody else, but they're trying to ban the Confederate flag. They hate the Confederate flag. The left does, and it's like, well, we'll talk about, well, why is it so offensive, and what was the Civil War about? It's like there's a big X, bam, with the stars in the X, 10th Amendment. State rights. We're not going to let the feds tell us what to do. The X is right across the middle of the flag. 10th Amendment. But anyways, can I get my website? I didn't think I gave it out yet.
No, go ahead.
So that's aclg-liberty.com. And I don't know how detailed we'll get in today, but I have a video up there that we talk about coordination and land patents also. We want to get down to the land, not real estate, in all these commercial terms that are like you're talking about, bills of attainder, all this crazy property tax. And once you have your land patent, you don't have to pay for property tax. And if you want to contract with your fire department or your police department, make your own contract. Don't get lumped into, all these contracts that you don't consent to.
Well, again, once we get rid of the Roman civil law, the code, 99.9% of this stuff goes away. Because when we get back to common law as the fundamental law, they're supposed to have subject matter jurisdiction from the Constitution. Right? The people delegate certain powers to certain subjects. Declaration of Independence. Government is instituted among men that to secure these rights, government is instituted among men receiving their just powers under the consent of the governed. So that's what they're talking about is the Constitution. Delegates those powers over certain subjects. And if that subject is not delegated in the Constitution itself, there is no power delegated. Now, the bar twists that because they're still trying to play the game that, oh yeah, we have a Constitution, but the code is the law. They try to say, oh, well, if it doesn't say that we can't, then we can. That's not how contract law works. I make the going joke of, my neighbor hires me to paint his house, and we agree on the body of the house and the trim color, and he takes off on vacation. I take his Corvette out for a spin, and I paint his fence, chop down his trees, have sex with his wife or daughter, whatever. Well, the contract didn't say I couldn't. It's the same principle. So, I know that we contracted for me to paint your house a certain color, but, it didn't say that I couldn't chop your tree down, that I couldn't take your Corvette for a drive. See how stupid and ridiculous that sounds? Yeah, you're kind of speechless over there. What's going on there, Tony?
Oh, I mean, that's what happened during the revolution, man. They,
Yeah.
Third Amendment. You're gonna quarter our soldiers here. We're gonna help ourselves to your food and your beer and your wine. Oh, by the way, we're gonna help ourselves to your daughter and to your wife. You wonder why the Black Robe Regiment preachers took up arms and shot the redcoats in the face. That's why it wasn't
Yep.
over wasn't over the Tea Party. But anyways, I got a before we get into the document, I have a dumbed down, spoon fed version of coordination I'm going to read, and then we'll get into that document.
Okay.
So basically, it's layman's terms. So excuse the language because, we're going to get into the law here. But so coordination process is, and what Fred called it was legal requirements of agency relationship, because they are using the codes and they are bound to the codes because they're in the corporate body politic. And so this explanation of coordination shows how states and local government agencies can be lawfully equal to the federal government in any land use, plans, or projects that a federal agency may be considering in your local area, like these wind turbines that they're trying to put over there in Idaho. The relationship of local government entities, elected or appointed political subdivisions of the states, are legally equal to federal and state agencies in the coordination process. This process is one that requires government to government process consisting of direct meetings. Also, state agencies with local units of government also qualify. So you can have a township, you can have a city government, or you can have a county government that creates their own policy, and then you're on equal footing. So they're equal when these entities assert their lawful standing in the coordination processes set forth by complying to those requirements of the law and some of the court rulings. So number one, coordination meetings are conducted under congressional mandates, federal statutes, regulations, and appropriate Senate statutes and codes that apply as well, like you're talking about. It's their code. We're going to hold them to it. These coordination meetings are conducted in the spirit of achieving consistency. And it is also mandated by the statute that we're going to talk about, which is 43 USC section 1712. Current statutes require that all federal agencies to coordinate between local government plans or proposals or policies with that of the federal and state agencies. So when they're trying to, the EPA wants to create some ridiculous thing like what out here in California, they're telling everybody that when you buy a new home, Kirk, you got to put solar panels on your roof. I don't consent to that. So just to wrap up the layman's term, federal code, statutes, and laws that are set forth in the requirements for meeting the consistency mandate are followed and considered equal, meaning the same kind of class. Okay. What it means is that federal and state agencies cannot claim they are exempt from coordination because the statute does not mention their agency specifically. So the National Environmental Policy Act, I'm almost done, NEPA, requires coordination whether there is an action to be taken or a plan to be contemplated. The Council on Environmental Quality Regulations governs and defines the implementation of the coordination process through NEPA. Okay, the Federal Land Policy Management Act, which is FLPMA, defines what coordination is and requires actions that shall be taken by the appropriate federal agency. So when coordinating with California state agencies, you know what, I'm not going to read that because we're not talking about California today. So, but I would like to talk about what's going on in your state, brother, about Idaho, because the feds are trying to put these wind farms in. And also there's another issue about the farmers.
Yeah, the water issue. Trying to cut the water off.
So if you're state legislator or your city council, I mean, I'm going to do something extreme. Oakdale's called the cowboy capital of the world, okay? Oakdale, California, where I'm at. And the reason why is they have more rodeo champions here than any other city. And they're just small podunk county out here in rural California. It's a beautiful community, but a lot of farms and ranches and whatnot.
Yep.
So I'm going to that city council and I'm going to instruct them. We're going to create a policy. Okay, so this is how coordination works. There's 4 elements of the environment, national environmental policy. You have the human environment, you have the economic environment, you have the social environment, and then you have the natural environment. You saw how the tree huggers, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm all for trees. We need trees to breathe, and they need CO2. So let's keep the relationship with the trees and all this carbon nonsense.
Right.
And so the human economic and social environment, did that not be affected with COVID and the shutdowns? We could have did coordination. Cities could have said, we're going to create a policy where each element of the environment are equally important. And we're not shutting social things down. We're not shutting economic down, and we're not shutting the human environment down. So it could have been done. So I'm going to the city council over there in Oakdale and say, we're going to be the first constitutional carry city in California in I don't know how many decades. They just want to throw everybody in jail without their permission to carry a firearm. I don't own firearms. I own arms, guns, weapons.
Yep.
And so I'm going to say, look, we're instructing and requiring you to create a safety policy for the human and social and economic environment, because people were getting robbed here. In California, they just go up and smash your window out and take your luggage out. They know you're traveling. They smash the windows open and start hauling, Macy's and Saks Fifth Avenue. They just start robbing places, because if it's under $1,000, the way California is that the prosecutors or the prostitutors will not charge the people, these Soros pawns. So let's start implementing what our will is and instruct our little local legislative bodies, cities, counties, townships, whatever, even the state, what our policy is. And then if they don't want to do what our policy is, then we'll individually sue them. Mm-hmm. The legislators, they have qualified immunity, and it's like a loan. You have to qualify for it. So it's like what you do. Your lawful notification letters are the most detailed I've ever seen, Kurt. And when you put them on notice, it's spelled out in black and white. Here, I'm going to show you 20 reasons why you're violating the law in your oath of office and the rights of the people who are your constituents. So now that I've explained all that to you, this is what we're going to do. And now that you've been put on notice, you're beyond, ignorance is no excuse. You're beyond that. Mm-hmm. You're not only bound to it, but now you're acting deliberate with indifference, which means you've lost your qualified immunity. So.
Right. I wonder who I learned to do lawful notification letters from.
I taught Kirk one thing.
That he did.
Anyways, we've been, the gun thing, the lawful notification letter in Pennsylvania. My brother-in-law wanted to get a gun, and they're like, oh, you're on a list. One page. I like to be the one-page wonder. One lawful notification letter telling the lieutenant who was in charge of it, Pennsylvania Highway Patrol, that would you kindly remove me from the list? By the way, if you don't kindly do that, I'm going to sue you in federal court. And, which we can avoid that. Just take me off the list. 3 weeks later, he got a letter here. Take this into your gun shop. Give them this number. If you're not off the list by already, just take this letter in. So he went in and purchased his gun, not his firearm. And I guess I missed that. You shared that the other week, right?
Yeah, I covered that recent case there from May 9th out of the Ninth Circuit, the one that you sent me or informed me of. I went and dug that up and covered it on the show, 2 weeks ago now. So, yeah, even felons, so-called felons, can have guns now because that's been declared unlawful and unconstitutional. It's being narrowed down all the way now to it's at, where they were using, so long as you're a law-abiding citizen. With this case here that just came out of the Ninth Circuit, which is my circuit over our circuit, California, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, federal, said, no, that's unlawful and unconstitutional unless it involves a violent felony, violent crime.
Yeah,
but I still hold the fact that in the Criminal Practice Act of 1864 here in Idaho, it specifically states that once you're done with your time, you get all of your rights back. It doesn't say, with the exception of your right to keep and bear arms. You know, this is why we have to comprehend that this is what the Supreme Court has already ruled on, and they keep citing this. Everybody else keeps citing this. Well, no. The Bruin case, New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin case, Supreme Court said that this right is a fundamental right that comes from nature as the right of self-defense. So that's the main case, New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin. All these other cases are referencing that and said, no, it comes from nature. Nope, comes from nature. You can't deprive that right.
Yeah, that was a beautiful ruling. And they shifted the paradigm back in the right direction.
Well, and another thing that happened with that particular case is the Supreme Court has changed the standard of review. They no longer want to look at statutes from history or any case law. They want the actual text and history of the tradition or custom. That's from the common law. Maxims of law and customs. Customs under the common law are things like bills of rights, because bills of rights are just merely declaratory of the common law. Rights as the law, which again comes from the French word droit, meaning right or law or right. It is synonymous. They're interchangeable. So when you say it's the law, or when you say it's my right or a right, it's the law. So we can't, we got to go back to what they've done is they've reverted us back to actual text of documents, citing Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England. What does it say as it is written? Well, that's that first primary absolute right of personal security that Blackstone lays out from the laws of nature. The second one being personal security. There's your, everybody calls it right to travel. It's the right of personal liberty. The right to the power of locomotion, choo-choo, vroom, vroom. To go changing situations and going wherever you want to go, uninhibited by any statutes, rules, regulations. It can only be deprived, any one of these, they can only be deprived by a grand jury or by the law of the land. Period. And actually it would be a petite jury, right? Because you got to go through the trial by jury, which starts with a grand jury and ends in a petite jury, with unanimous consent from all 12 men. So this is the new standard of review for reviewing for errors or constitutional challenges. And again, I want to reiterate that they specifically stated, we don't care about any statutes from history or any stare decisis case law, any previous decisions of any of the courts. We don't care. That's not law. So the Supreme Court of the United States of America is telling us that statutes and case law is not law. We want the actual written law. The history of the right. Imagine that, folks. What have I been doing since 1995? That's what I've been studying, the history of law. And, ask me a question. Anything, Tony?
So I got a client over here that I'm assistance of counsel. And so this Dewar case had direct impact in Ninth Circuit. And it's funny how when they use the word that he was not, it's illegal for a person to carry a firearm without a permit here in California. And then they says that Dewar was not a person. He was one of the people. Mm-hmm. And it says that he had a right to keep and bear arms. So it corrected the language. And so one of my counts, count one, deprivation of rights, 42 USC 1983, Second Amendment. Can I read just that one count and reiterate what you're doing it? Mm-hmm. So this is how you start your counts when you're doing your Title 42. Usually you want to incorporate everything that you mentioned before into that account. Mm-hmm. So you start out with plaintiff realleges and incorporates previous paragraphs as though they were fully set forth within. So you're bringing the entire complaint right into count one. The plaintiff's right to keep and bear arms as one of the people is secured by the Second Amendment, including the mandatory language shall not be infringed. Despite this clearly established law, all defendants without any lawful reason, probable cause, or articulable facts that equate to an illegal seizure work together in concert to trespass against plaintiffs' guaranteed rights to keep and bear arms. Further, fortification of these facts have been heralded in the Supreme Court case New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which you just said that was decided June 23rd of 2022. This ruling underscores a judicial preference for a strict historical interpretation of the Second Amendment, just like you said, Kirk, emphasizing a constitutional protection that resists specifically against expansive government restrictions on gun ownership and use, grounded in the historical context in 1791 and reinforced by subsequent legal and scholarly analysis in keeping and bearing arms without infringement. Further, the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution applies uniformly to state citizens, and in every state. It stems primarily from the incorporation through we know it's the 14th Amendment. I'm not hot about it. Let me finish, and you can correct that right there. The Second Amendment, I'm giving the judge what Fred taught me. Give the judge what he wants to rule for you. I don't agree with the 14th Amendment, but anyways, the Second Amendment's directive that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed is mandated, that extends far beyond federal government to include state and local governments. This extension is due to the doctrine of incorporation established through a series of Supreme Court's decisions, most notably McDonald versus City in Chicago. In this landmark ruling, the court held that the Second Amendment is fully applicable to the states through the 14th Amendment's due process. So I'm just adding in the extra, the codes, and let me finish it up here. This incorporation means further verification that the fundamental right of self-defense as enshrined in the Second Amendment is a liberty that no state can abrogate. It signals that any state or local laws that attempt to restrict the core right of the plaintiff to possess and use arms for legitimate purposes. The application of this right to every state ensures a uniform baseline to the protection to the plaintiff across any of the United States of America, safeguarding the ability as of all American citizens to exercise the right without undue governmental interference. Thus, the Second Amendment protections are not merely historical artifacts, but are active and enforceable constraints on state power, reflecting a clear constitutional boundary that aligns with both the original intent and the long-standing traditions of the American governance. You liking my language so far? Moreover, USA versus Dewart, that's the other one you were talking about, the Ninth Circuit. USA versus Stephen Dewart, a.k.a. Shorty, right? Did you read that?
Yeah.
On May 9th, echoed this with the opinion of the circuit judge, BEA is his name, in the following. It said, and this is what you were saying, 18 U.S.C. Section 922G1 makes it a crime if any person to possess a firearm. And if he had been convicted of an offense punishable by imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year, punishable by imprisonment. Okay, so that's what the code says. And it said Stephen Dewart had 5 previous non-violent state criminal convictions. I think he threw the gun out the window when he got pulled over. But
he was the passenger. But
so
they found the magazine in between the seat.
Anyways, I don't want to read anymore, but do you see how Bruin shifted the paradigm, like you said, back to the original intent? So all those Supreme Court rulings that they were using on all these red flag laws, especially here in California, they're all null and void. Actually, open carry should be legal according to the code now, more or less.
But we don't need the code. The Second Amendment says what it says, and that's primarily what the Bruin case actually did, because it's open or concealed. We do not seek permission to exercise a right. That's what they talk about in there. And, here's that rebuttal to that stupid-ass 14th Amendment. First of all, it says the right of the people, not citizens. It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Did you read that in Dewar? It used the word American citizen. Yeah. It defined citizens as an individual who's part of a group that is one of the people. So, yes, not U.S. citizens and not firearms.
But see, here again, these people have no clue what the real law is. Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 212 defines what a citizen is. That's a member of a civil society who is bound to perform certain duties and is subject to its authority. That's Article 6, Clause 3. All the aforementioned senators and representatives and all the members of the legislative, executive, and judicial branch, both state and federal, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. The public servants are the citizens, civil servants, city servants. The people are the rightful masters. That's the sovereign people, the sovereign body politic. Of the people, by the people, for the people. That's the republic. The people are the government. Of the people, by the people, for the people. And then you have section 212 is the inhabitants. Okay? And then it does say that there's a different level or different kind of citizen. That's the people. That's what that's really talking about, is the people. Why is it written by our founders in the Second Amendment that the right of the people, not the right of the citizens, not the right of the inhabitants, it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We don't need the 14th Amendment to make that applicable to the states. That's a bunk argument, and that's all part of the Reconstruction Acts, right? And then that's the thing. It's like, wait a minute. Are you saying that the Bill of Rights that was done in 1791 by all of the states, ratified by all the states, doesn't apply to the states? Have you read the 10th article of the Bill of Rights? Do you know that the Bill of Rights is a declaration of rights? Oh, would that be that merely declaratory of the common law that American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 100 talks about? And that those provisions are mandatory? Yeah. But what is the 10th article, or known as the 10th Amendment? What does it say? This Constitution. Wait, but this is a Bill of Rights. But it says this Constitution. Yeah, that's because when you read the top portion of that Bill of Rights, you know. Oh wait, this is. Is
that the Declaration?
Oh, this is a declaration. Buddy of mine brought this over. Buddy Vern found another one. But it says in the top portion of the Bill of Rights, it says these are articles in addition to an amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. It's an amendment. One. The whole thing is a document. It's in addition to the Constitution. So yes, it most certainly applies to the states because, one, it's a Bill of Rights. It's merely declaratory of the common law. It's already the law. Hale versus Hinkle. Our rights are long antecedent to the formation of the state. Hello? Where can we find hints about the right to keep and bear arms from history? I don't know. How about start with the first charter of Virginia, 1606, where it says that we have the right to have arms while out on adventure and that nobody will interfere with that. Essentially, that's what it says in there. We will not interfere with your exercise of your right to have arms while out on adventure, because why? They already knew back then the laws of nature, fundamentally and principally, you have the right to defend yourself. And it's not about hunting. It's about defending ourselves from tyranny.
A free state.
Yeah, a state of being free.
Do we have a free state right now? I don't know.
Free state is a state of being free, as opposed to slaves, right? Because state is about a state of being. State is not a territory. State is a state of being. Like being grateful to Almighty God for our blessings of liberty. That's our state of being. So, comment out here talking about the Articles of Confederation too. Yeah, I get that, but I'm talking way before any of the Confederation, any of that. Again, it's about the text and history as it is written. So There's the first charter of Virginia. See, corporate charter for the Virginia Company. In 1606, the king recognized that we had the right to keep and bear arms. Again, 1606. Okay, we're talking now 1791 with the Second Amendment. How many years later is that?
It's a long time.
See, 1706, there's 100 years. So 170, some years before the Second Amendment was written, we all knew that we had the right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed. And it's the rights of man. Period. I could care less that it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is a God-given fundamental right from the laws of nature. It comes before the Constitution. I don't care what the Bill of Rights even says. This is the law. It's already fundamental principle. We're already supposed to know this is the common sense law. As Blackstone says in his commentaries, this is the common sense law. Right? Maxims of law. What a man does in his defense is to be considered legal. That's the maxim of law there that kind of applies here. Whatever he does, if he takes up arms to defend himself, he is within his sovereign right. I mean, can anybody make a legitimate argument against that? I mean, against a fundamental principle, a maxim of law, and the actual text of the history of law? No, they can't. Not and be of sound mind. Not to anybody else that of sound mind. Does anybody else disagree with me? I don't see any comments out here disagreeing with my articulation of facts of law as it is written and maxims of law. Any takers on that?
What came first, the chicken or the egg? You're talking about succession.
Would have to be the chicken because God created the animal.
I know.
Then the animal creates the eggs to what?
I agree.
Procreate.
No, I agree. No, I'm just saying how you were sharing succession of law, and everybody's talking about the restoration of the republic, and you know the answer to this. What came first, the federal government or the individual states? I mean, that's an easy one. What came first, the Confederacy or the states? So the states came first, right?
No. The Confederacy came first.
I thought we had 13 original colonies before they started,
colonies.
Right?
They didn't become independent sovereign nation states until after the Articles of Confederation. If you read the history, which is in that 7 volumes of all of the states' federal constitutions, organic laws forming the United States of America, you'll see that Virginia ceded the land to those colonies once they did their new constitution. They became independent sovereign nation states. See, this is where people have to comprehend that Virginia was a very large territorial mass starting in 1606, 1609, right? The Mayflower Compact says that they're settling in the northern parts of Virginia. Why in 1621? For the form of government, the Ordinance of Virginia of 1621.
So aren't all the states supposed to be sovereign nations, technically, that are in a union, right?
Bingo.
So in order to restore the republic, shouldn't it happen state by state? Who's going to be the first state that's restored as a republican form of government?
Well, Michigan's already done that, and so has Alaska. They've already done that. That was back in 2012. These are the real guys, the national-assembly.net, which is education website, But these guys did this is part of what Carl Miller was part of. Right? This is the only legitimate one that is reassembling government de jure. Okay? And I finally have found them, right? Actually, they found me, but then I found them. again, I've been looking for that stuff since 2014 when I first found Carl Miller, and he talked about this Project Blue Book and educating the people, going out and da-da-da-da. Well, that's that military training, citizenship manual, training manual from the military and all that stuff. That's in part what Carl Miller was talking about. And then come to find out, Carl Miller actually lived with Destry for 2 years. It's like, how do you not know that this is the real deal? At least in my mind, right? From me, my research, talking to myself. How do I not know that this is the real deal? And all these other, scam artists out there trying to pretend like they're the ones that are reassembling government de jure. They call themselves American state nationals. All political power is inherent in the people. Where does it say American state national? It says the people. And then when I bring up the United States Code, where's the only place that you can find national, and then etymology, origin of words, when it happened and all that, how do you reconcile the fact that national as a noun didn't become a noun created until 1878? And if you look in the United States Code, that legislation is from 1878, creating the national. Okay, so how do you reconcile that national is a legitimate status in our republic, in the nation called America, if it didn't exist until 1878? Why is it not? You can't find it in the Law of Nations. Nowhere. Because it didn't exist when the Law of Nations was written by Emer D. Vattel. So again, how do you reconcile national as a status in this nation called America when it didn't exist at the time of its creation? Only after the Reconstruction Acts of 1871, and you can only find it in the United States Code, Roman civil law, the Code, when they changed this from common law to Roman civil law in 1873. I mean, this is just logic and reason. How do you reconcile that? How do you fix that? How do you logically, reasonably, in your mind, come to a reasonable conclusion based in reality that we want to change our status to an American state national? Not me. I see right through that BS. Get that crap out of here. It's all a bunch of fraud.
Is that what Vaughn Wright is putting together? Is that part of her program?
Well, now there's some other people out there that are trying to push it, And it's like, oh, you got to correct your status and you got to pull yourself out of the corporation. No, it's all fraud. And by the way, that fraudulent corporation, United States Inc., Trump did the involuntary bankruptcy on that in June of 2020. So it's already gone. It's already done. And if you talk with Destry and you look on the website there, national-assembly.net, there was 17 requisitions in there. One of them was to abolish the Reconstruction Acts of 1871 and return us back to our republic. It's up to us to reassemble because, see, our republic is of the people. Where's the people? That's the government. The people are the sovereign body politic. Law of Nations, right? Lays that out. I believe it's Book 1, Chapter 1, Section 3. I could be misquoting that. 3 or 4, I keep forgetting. Anyways, the people, we are the sovereign body politic. That's what republic, R-E, public, by the public. In regards to the public, it's all political powers inherent in the people. So where are the people?
They're too busy being citizens. This is the problem. Was all we need to do is open up for business, real business, not the corporation.
People talk about changing your status. Well, this is how you change your status. You do your covenant, which your covenant is to God, to uphold God's law, and then your oath, which maxim of law, right? Fundamental principle here. There's no firmer bond among men than an oath. This is why our founders wrote that, right straight from the Bible. It says not to swear under oath, but lest you be judged. That's the reason why we require that, to be under oath, so that they can be judged, get personal jurisdiction. They become a member of the legislative, executive, or judicial. Okay? But the fundamental principle is there's no firmer bond among men than an oath. Some people out there say, well, my word is my bond. That's right. Speak it. Swear under oath that you will uphold the law, that you will defend us, the people, our rights. That's the bond between the men. Again, the covenant is between man and God. That's how you change your status to one of the people. By doing that particular document, when you reassemble government de jure. And you have to reassemble the state level first, because a county is within the territory, right? The state, the body politic, the nation state. So you can't assemble just the county without assembling the state, the nation state. It's just common sense. So, enough on that. What do you got there, brother? Let's talk about this coordination.
Okay. Do you want to throw up that Word document, or?
Yeah, I can. I have it pulled up here. Let's pull this sucker over here.
Yeah, this is Fred Kelly Grant's Word document. And when I was involved in this, Kirk, we went over to Heartland, Wisconsin. This is in 2017. Was the first time I did this coordination with Fred. And so it's kind of easy to connect the dots. I can't prove this, but all of a sudden, the Food and Drug Administration is coming after the vape industry. When the vape industry came on the scene, people were getting off of tobacco, right? And so they were using these vape pipes to wean yourself off of cigarettes. And so I believe personally that Big Tobacco lobbied the FDA to basically shut down this vape industry. And so in this Heartland, Wisconsin, there was a vape factory with 250 people, right? And so when the FDA says this is causing people sick, whatever, this is unsafe, so we're going to require you to shut down, they decided to invoke coordination, and they created their own policy because the economic environment was in a small town, 250 people working at a factory isn't important to the economy of the local, governing political subdivision. And so is the social, so is the human environment. So they would have to have proof that it's harming the health of the people, or it's damaged, or they're dumping their vape juice in the river and it's messing up the natural environment. So they could not prove any of that. So what you do is you have a loan officer step up and you start calling your expert witnesses to validate and verify that your the policy that you're setting forth is doing no harm, but actually helping the community. And you're not going to consent to the FDA, and you're requiring them to come into consistency with the local policy that you're creating. And so we basically, in a nutshell, smacked down the FDA. And then the last thing that they said is, well, we're going to do a 5-year study, and then we're going to come back and revisit this when we prove that it's harming people. And so before 5 years passed, guess what Big Tobacco ends up doing? They end up buying into the vape industry, right? They just start buying everything up. If you can't lick them, join them, right? So, and that's these emoluments violations. These lobbyists that go into these bureaucracies and alphabet agencies that are mere little sub-corporations, right? They all have a DUNS number. And they sit there and lobby these people. And it's just amazing, because then they go and work. The people that are in these alphabet agencies go to work for these big corporations that lobby them when they get out. And that's why Trump put the moratorium that if you work in my administration, you cannot lobby for 5 years afterwards. He made them sign a contract because people use their position of power in order to gain what is that, unjust gains through emoluments by taking
Yep.
advantage profits.
Yep. Any advantage, profit, or gain received due to one's position of employment or holding of office. Now, there's legitimate emoluments, right? Like the governor should receive a just compensation. The legislators, the judges, they should all receive a just compensation. But anything outside a just compensation is an unjust enrichment.
And pick your poison. I mean, if you want to go after somebody, I think most people that are in Congress right now are definitely violating that. When you become part of a committee, they ask you to get a sponsor because they want $100,000 if you want to be on the Senate Appropriations Committee. Well, what if you're just, like one of some of the honest legislators and senators that you have in Idaho, someone like Christy Zitto, she's not going to take a payoff. So if she was in Washington, D.C. in the federal government, where's she going to come up with $100,000 to be on a committee? Oh, what they do is say, you know what? We got someone who will sponsor you. And guess what? They give you the $100,000. And then when a vote comes up, you get visited by your sponsor, right? Hey, you know what? We're going to need you to vote this or do this or that, right? Then you then you become a pawn. And so that's why it's so important to not take special interest money, right? So let's go over to page 3 because I think this is Fred's a storyteller. So I think the first couple pages are some of the stories that he was saying. But
so Brother Diesel D's, sorry to interrupt you here, but this is a very important thing. Asking about the topic that's kind of a little confusing here, succession of law. Now remember, rights as the law. Now, through succession of law, rights cannot be diminished. So this is the reason why in the Bruin case they're talking about wanting to look through the text, the history of as it is written. They even looked at the English Bill of Rights of 1689. So 1689, well, that's before our republic. Well, not necessarily, yes. Before America became an independent sovereign nation, yes. But our history starts at 1606, or relatively speaking, clear back to the Magna Carta. But, again, succession of law, the only thing that we would do in succession of law would be to provide better protections of our rights. Because the fundamental principle of instituting government is to secure these rights. So what this has been is kind of a trial and error all throughout history of, well, we'll write it this way, like in the Magna Carta. It says it this way. As we go through history, succession of law, and more documents are written throughout history, the verbiage may change, but it's always to better protect the right or expound on the right. And it is said that these rights are supposed to be liberally construed in favor of us and narrowly construed when it comes to governmental power. So I hope that explains that when it comes to succession of law. And this is the reason why I started studying history of law. Because I wanted to know what it actually said as it was written throughout history. And what I have found is that basically even the Bill of Rights of 1791 was it diminished some of the rights because it's really short. But the thing is all of them back then already knew the law really well. Remember, they were starting to be taught the law stuff, in school. And by the time they were 12 years old, they knew the law. They knew what their rights were. They knew how to do petitions. They knew how to write documents. They knew how to sue one another. So, all right. Sorry about that, brother.
No, I mean, if you got to answer a question, is there any questions on coordination so far since up to this point?
I haven't really seen much of anything on that.
And so what we, the people, need to do is start coming up with what we'd like our local government to do, creating our policy, to supersede basically the policies like these crazy green policies that they keep on coming up, like here in California. That's just so ridiculous. If you build a house, you have to have. So they're forcing you. They're violating Article 1, Section 9. What is that? That the government can't interfere with a contract. Article 1, Section 10.
No, it is 9.
Is it 9?
Yeah, there shall be no law impairing the obligations of a contract.
Yeah, so they're trying to create obligations that you have to use solar. I mean, that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I guess we have to smack that in the mouth.
The only exception to that is fraud, because a contract must be lawfully obtained. And there's all those elements requiring it to be, of sound mind, of capable entering into that contract, those kinds of things.
Yeah, with this is kind of like an administrative procedure is what coordination is, because it's under the code. We wouldn't need to be using coordination if everybody was just following the law. So, it is kind of red tape and it is administration. But the wonderful thing is that this kind of excludes bar attorneys because there's no money into this, so they're creating policy. Well, attorneys can't make money in creating policy, so they're not going to get involved because this doesn't go to court. What you do is you have your hearings. And so let's say that Ada County wants to create a new policy. Well, Kirk, you would be the hearing officer. You would be the guy coordinating, calling forth the witnesses and calling forth the opposition and making sure that, everybody is heard. But at the end of the day, the policy that you're pushing, as long as it's constitutional, then you have to come into consistency, meaning they have to conform to you locally.
Now, I want to talk about this here because they're talking about comment out here. Thought the Board of Supervisor had jurisdiction over all political power is inherent in the people, and this is the beauty of what Fred Kelly Grant was teaching us here, and what he had actually done. Right, we have the power. You don't have to be a member of the bar to do this. This is outside of any of that stuff. We have the right to drag him to the table and say, hey, where's the coordination for this? Where did you follow due process of law to get this authority to do this? Oh, you don't have coordination? Well, then you're shut down. You're done. Does that seem short and sweet enough?
Yeah. It's funny. I never thought that we would be using the National Environmental Policy Act to get stuff constitutionally done. But apparently, that's what it says, consistency. And I like Fred's definition of consistency. That's what I'm looking for right now, because that's the goal, is to bring everybody on the same page. Because without consistency, they can't act or stop you from your policy. Coordination, planning efforts.
Well, should we just kind of read through here what he had to say here in the preface?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay, in developing this brief, I obviously did not work alone. This version became a real tool with the help of Stacy Grant, John Grant, and members of the Board of Directors of Trademark America, where I served as a member of the board. The person who put me onto coordination as a strong principle of law that could work through local government and on the true importance of such local governments in framing policy for the federally managed lands was Bert Smith on a cold, snowy day in Jordan Valley when I was deprived of a warm afternoon of football to do a good deed for friend Dick Bass and learned what I could about a process that could save the ranchers of Owyhee County, Idaho. Now, this Jordan Valley here, this is in Idaho.
Yeah, that's where he started using it. It's funny. Fred's a storyteller, so
He is. He's a great storyteller, and he also has a book out there called Justice My Ass. Now, I don't know if it's even in print out there, if it can be ordered or not, but
can you see it? Can you see it on the screen?
yeah, I can. It's just, we got a little small picture over here right now, but
Okay.
yeah, I have mine at the office on the shelf. I've read from it.
We were working on Justice My Ass too. Court is my playground, but we didn't get a chance to finish that.
Yeah. Okay, so the legendary Chuck Cushman taught me how coordination could be used as a political tool in behalf of local governments. Much of the background was developed when I served as a member of the board and then president of Stewards of the Range, then when I served as president of American Stewards of Liberty, and then as president of Trademark America, where I worked when I put together this first formal brief. In all those assignments, I worked on and smoothed the edges of the argument with aid from Margaret Byfield, Dan Byfield, Mike Dale, chairman of the American Stewards Board, other members of the various boards, Sean Curtis and Carolyn Carey, who listened, learned, and brought coordination to Modoc County in California, Catherine Lehman, who fought a Herculean fight to persuade Jackson County of Oregon to help its citizens by forcing agencies to follow the law, and who traveled endlessly with me in our almost Theospin tour to convince people that Congress enacted the laws. They just had to ask. As preparations for the originally slated lawsuit moved along, the sheriffs of Northern California participated in conferences, learning the operational methods of coordination so that they could do their duties as local law enforcement heads to protect their counties. Sheriff Dean Wilson of Del Norte, John Lope of Siskiyou, Gil Gilbertson of Grant, and others followed in the footsteps of Sheriff of Owyhee County, Idaho, Gary Ammon, who worked with me and with the Owyhee County's commissioners and Coordination Planning Commission to make the Owyhee County program a model. Finally, but by no means least helpful in the work leading up to the point at which this brief was drafted, were Nick Dranis, constitutional director of the Goldwater Institute, who picked coordination as one of the 10 top principles that can be used by local governments to restore an actual working federalism. Nick and I presented the coordination concept to the American Legislative Exchange Council, which adopted it and offered it as a model state statute. So, kind of getting the preface here of how this all came about and what who all was involved with setting this up, along with Fred Kelly Grant, who wrote this particular brief.
Yeah, Fred was always good at giving people credit. And like I said, this was already in the law, but he had to model the process.
Well, it was already in the code.
Yeah, you're right. Code.
You know, in a way, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 prohibits all of this. Federal government is not supposed to own any land within the territorial boundaries of a state, nation state, without the consent of the legislature and for military purposes. Those needful buildings, forts, ports, magazines, and arsenals. That's the supreme law of the land. I didn't write it, but that's what it says as it is written. So we're not even supposed to have any federal, national forests and all this federal government land, supposedly owned land. No, get out of here. This belongs to the people. God created this land, and God gave mankind dominion over the land. So how in the hell can any part of government own the land when God is the one that created it? But this is a tool that can be used, and it has been used, and very effectively, I might add. And actually, you were part of a couple different things with Fred Kelly Grant implementing this, and which you kind of mentioned a little bit before.
Well, what was nice is when he started, you can go back. What's that time machine? You can go back and look at his old websites. That somebody went and took pictures and of all these old websites. It's called the Time Machine. Have you ever used that?
Oh yeah, the Wayback Machine. Yes.
Yeah. So one of his websites was Stand and Fight Club, American Stewards of Liberty, which was mentioned above. I went back and was looking at some of those websites. They didn't have all the information on there, but we were getting ready to when he got sick and then he passed away. We had found a billionaire in New York, and what she said was she gave him a check for $200,000. Fred came out of that meeting with a check, and she says, "I'm going to give you $200,000 per quarter because I believe that coordination could help save America on a local level on all these crazy stuff." So he formed the America's, Coordination Institute, ACI, and with what's his name, Dick, the guy, he's the attorney from Peterson versus Peterson. What was his name? Anyways, he just passed away last month. One of the greatest attorneys, I thought, as far as with oral litigators. Man, this guy, trial attorney, was amazing. Were you at the Lee Rice 5-day trial at Title 42? Dick was the lead attorney on that. He put on a clinic. But anyways, so Dick and Fred were working together with this, and then Fred got sick. And so it was a bummer because what I'm trying to do, Kirk, is to get this coordination up and running so I can go back to that donor and say, okay, my mentor has passed away, but I'm his protege. We're up and we're doing coordination. So I think if we could pull this off over there in Idaho and stop this, robbing the farmers of their water, and from the feds trying to, shove these big wind turbines down the throats of the people out there, out in the rural areas, that if we could do that, we'll go back and get funding. It would be nice to have funding, wouldn't it?
Yeah, would be a wonderful, great thing to have funding.
Yeah, I don't think George Washington was running around doing sexual favors to collect ammo. You know what I mean? People were actually helping him. Send somebody to Kirk's Law Corner. People, it takes time. You know what I mean? You can't be working a full-time job and doing what you're doing at the same time. And so funding is just so important. Don't send your money to Trump. Trump doesn't need your money. Send it to Kirk's Law Corner. We're getting stuff done here, And so I'd love to see this coordination process, take off and make some damage, and to where we can go and get that funding. But unfortunately, I think we're going to have to fund this next project with these water rights. And, it mentions that also, I'm sure in the Idaho State Constitution about water, because this is what coordination has to deal with.
Right. In essence, doesn't it sit him down and say, where did we, the people of the territory of Idaho, give you the authority to do this? Where's the coordination? Oh, there wasn't any. So all of what you're doing is void for any effect. Kick rocks. And that's essentially my understanding of what Fred Kelly Grant has done in a lot of the coordination stuff. Brought them to the table, basically drug them, grabbed them by the neck, drug them to the table, said, show me where you had the coordination from the people here in Idaho, or specifically here in Idaho. Where's it at? Oh, well, we didn't. We just arbitrarily did whatever we want to do willy-nilly. Oh, so there was no coordination. Kick rocks. You're out of here.
Well, they can. It's like they if they can't rebut the policy, then they are tacitly in agreement. That's called consistency. And isn't it in the Idaho State Constitution that you have a right to clean air, right? Also?
Well, I mean, we
I believe
definitely would
it's
have the right to
solid.
not have somebody pollute the air with poison.
Like chemtrails or
Yeah,
geoengineering or
right,
cloud seeding.
right.
You, I saw the documents. Boise Power is doing that. They're flying it out of Mountain Home Air Force Base,
Yeah,
and they're hosting you down with raid. And I think that's against your fundamental liberty and right to breathe clean air. And this, you can use coordination to shut that shit show down because they're hosing us down like we're cockroaches, and it's raid. They're spraying barium and aluminum and who knows what else. Probably, some version of COVID. or if it isn't COVID, because it probably doesn't exist, what do little pieces of aluminum do when you put them in a microwave? They start spiking. So you start turning up the 5G crap.
It's like fireworks, right? Or lightning storm.
They're showing maps of all this radiation being released on the country. So they're cranking that stuff up. They're cranking HARP up. They're doing 5G. And so we're breathing in nanoparticles of what they're spraying in the air, little bits of aluminum and barium. And like I said, if it's microwaves, put foil in the microwave, see what happens. It starts sparking. Then all of a sudden your lungs are going to start filling up with fluid, right? And then you're going to be exuberating flu-like symptoms. I know it sounds like a conspiracy, but I know it sounds like it's starting to make sense because we know that they never isolated COVID, right? So is there any evidence that COVID actually existed? I mean, did they isolate it? I got you thinking now, huh?
Well, I've already got a plethora of FOIA requests for all sorts of so-called viruses from the WHO, the CDC, the Zika virus, the AIDS virus, obviously the coronavirus, all the COVID-19 stuff, even my own what we call an Idaho public records request instead of FOIA for proof, which I also did the public records request from our Central District Health that was pushing a lot of that stuff here on our district, our counties. No such records exist for the proof of COVID-19's existence. There's no genome sequence, there's no pictures, there's no measurements, right? Viruses do not exist. Period. And if you're one of them fancy medical guys out there that seem to think that's false, well, show me the science. Show me some Koch's postulates results, scientific tests, Show me the science, because I'm aware of Koch's postulates as pretty much the only viable test in the whole world, aside from Rivers, but Koch's postulates is the oldest one, that can do a genome sequence of 26,000 to 40,000 base pairs. Show me the science. And then show me a picture of this thing that you took under, an electron microscope that's blown this sucker up, and then give me the measurements of this damn thing. That's what I demanded. No such records exist. There's no scientific evidence. There's none. Nothing. For any of them. Zika virus, AIDS, any of these so-called viruses. This dis-ease, it's a discomfort. What's the discomfort from? It's our body being toxic. There's no such thing as cancer either. It's all a lie. It's either a parasitic infection or a bacterial fungus infection. That's your two options. Let's tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
This doctor I know is curing everybody with cancer as long as it is in the late stages, just by adjusting their diet and alkalizing.
Yeah. Look at Dr. Michael Carfeld and Misty Carfeld, his wife now. There was another one. I think was it Chelsea? I think Chelsea was the other one. She was like a month from deathbed, from dying. And what was it? Vitamin C injections.
Wow.
Wow. You mean actual nutrients? How powerful is vitamin C? Clearly very powerful. Nature. Mother
coordination
nature.
coordination could shut down these chemtrails. I think they've already started this in Rhode Island and a couple other places.
Yeah.
Where are they getting the money to do this too? Is it coming from the World Health Organization? Is it part of the Paris Climate Accord? Because Trump defunded that. That was the first thing he defunded when he got in there.
Yeah.
But
the other thing that I talk about is the right of petition, right? The right to alter, reform, or abolish anything at any time we deem it necessary. Where the legislature, where did they get the authority to authorize this? Because under the General Welfare Clause, let's talk about the General Welfare Clause. It's not supposed to dictate to the people. It's supposed to dictate to corporations, and it's supposed to, right? What was government instituted for? What was the fundamental principle, the reason, the intent? To secure our rights, our right to health, right? To be healthy, not to be poisoned in the air and our food and our water. That's the General Welfare Clause, is to defend us from what may cause injury, loss, or harm to the people. Okay, so the first fundamental question is, does it cause injury, loss, or harm to the people? If the answer is yes, then there must be a governmental intervention and to shut it down. That's the General Welfare Clause.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Let's just keep it simple. Shut it down. Whatever got legislated to authorize that needs to be revoked. It's just that simple. I don't know why we're not doing that.
Well,
our right dictates it. The law dictates it.
Trump wants to give power back to the people. I don't think the people were ready to take the power back. They're not educated. They don't know what to do. If that's all
why we're here right now.
That's why you
right?
got to do more than voting. Are we voting ourselves into liberty? We're not doing that.
No.
It could help to get stuff done, especially on a local level. But
on a world stage.
They're trying to talk about this bird flu. They're going to probably try to do shutdowns. Would anybody be shocked if they just keep dumping what they're dumping? Who knows what the hell they're spraying on us? Then they just turn on the microwaves, flip up the 5G. All of a sudden, everybody's foaming at the mouth with mucus. And here it is, the new bird flu. We're shutting everything down again, and we're going to do mail-in ballots all over again.
Well, not if I have anything to do with it.
Well, it's predictive programming. That's what the media does. They're talking about, we all know about Project Bluebeam, okay? Bluebeam. Now all of a sudden they're talking about aliens and UFOs. And so they're just throwing it out there a little bit here and there. And they can create a hologram, or what is it, a holograph of what would look like a UFO right in the sky. When I was down at Disneyland 25 years ago, they made a 150-foot dragon. It looked like I was staring at a dragon, and they were using it from the midst of a water fountain to do that hologram. But it was very impressive 20 years ago with all these nanoparticles in the air. I think they could create any image they want with that. Now, I mean, it's just some of the technology is, we're always 20 years behind of all they call that, the black technology that they're not releasing to the public. But so coordination efforts is, we can vote coordination in Ada County over there where you're at, Kirk, and saying that, the chemtrails is affecting the human environment. It's affecting the natural environment. That's 2 environments right there that it's affecting, 2 out of the 4. So we need to ban that. What exactly? And I guess while you're doing that, and so the federal government they're supposed to show up and coordinate. They must coordinate. So in coordination, when the feds show up, I guess we get to ask them, hey, what's in this? By the way, that stuff you're spraying, can you bring a sample of that? We need a breakdown of what we're breathing in, because it's affecting the human environment and the natural environment. Who did that first is Shasta County in California. They did a presentation because one of the feds, he was from the fishing game. They realized that the trout were dying at the bottom of Mount Shasta, and it's a freshwater stream. Did you ever catch trout out of freshwater streams. It's just
Yes,
amazing.
I have.
Yeah, and that's my favorite. You don't have to scale
Brookies,
them.
brook trout.
Yeah. So we had rainbow trout back in Pennsylvania. But anyway, so all these fish are dying, and so they open up the fish and they're finding free aluminum in this fish. And free aluminum can't come from the earth; you have to manufacture it. Well, someone from the National Geological Survey Institute or whatever, one of those governmental entities. So the guy with Fish and Game was 30 years. Okay. 30 years experience with Fish and Game. He knew what the heck he was doing. The guy from the National Geological Survey Agency, whatever they're called, he had been there on the job for 30 years. They found free aluminum at the top of Mount Shasta. So how did it get up there? And it's melting and going down into the streams. It has to be coming from the chemtrail. There's not a free aluminum plant at the top of Mount Shasta. So
Are you sure?
They did this presentation to the Shasta County supervisors. I mean, and I watched this 20 years or 15 years ago. It was so legendary that they just sat there and they did it like coordination. They brought their expert witnesses up. They say, hey, I'm 30 years with this. This is my test. They brought in another guy who was a respiratory therapist who was in the region for 30 years. And he started documenting to where all these people started coming in with respiratory problems the more they started chemtrailing. And so, they came in with all their evidence and it was almost like a hearing. And these little county supervisors, their jaw hits the ground. They're like, well, we really can't argue with anything you brought here. Maybe you should have brought this with Congress. This is what these elected officials, they didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Well, now with coordination, you could say, you know what, we're banning spraying our skies with these chemicals and with this. What is the chemical word for barium? Isn't it BA? And the chemical code, they have the two letters for the thing.
Yeah.
And guess what the chemical the code for aluminum is what? AL.
Yeah.
What's BAAL? This is what the ball, right? That's their god.
Yep.
So they're hosing us down with ball. They're affecting the natural and the human environment. We need to coordinate and ban chemtrailing over Ada County, which means it can't be drifting by the wind. So they're going to have to go way out and stop this. So they're stopping it in other counties. And, it's interesting how Ann Hetchy, she started speaking out about that. Remember, she got in that car accident. Then you see her jump off the stretcher, off the gurney. You know what I mean? And they shove her back down and wheel her into the room. She dies. Prince was starting to bring it up. All of a sudden, he disappears. So if Tony disappears, I'm not suicidal. I just want to say that, but they can't kill us all.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I disappear, I'm not suicidal.
But no, so they're doing it in other places. And so, hey, Idaho can be the first. Lee Rice used to say that Idaho can be the first free state. It's doable. Idaho could lead. And, you guys have really good people there in office, some good people. The scumbags have been there. The establishment has been there forever. And you know what? We need to start using lawfare like they're doing on Trump. You know why they sued Trump? Because they could. You know why we can sue our public officials? Because we can, right? And
yeah.
So,
interesting enough, this Tanawa Downing, what he's doing there, and brought that to my attention. Again, I'm like, over the 1,000 times that I've read the Constitution, I didn't quite catch that in Article 3, Section 2 about the Supreme Court having original jurisdiction when it comes to suits between the citizen and a state.
Yeah.
So that means every single case they've ever prosecuted us, state of Idaho versus me or anybody else, state of whatever, against us, well, they never had jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction is the Supreme Court. Because, but this is what I've argued in my case, that the state of Idaho can't sue me. They don't have personal jurisdiction over man. And in fact, the state can't actually bring any suit at all.
Well, that's why you asked for.
You have to have one of the people as a party, the injured party.
Right, exactly.
But
There's
not
no
under
such
the
thing as,
code, not under Roman civil law. We can do whatever we want.
yeah, as Chris used to say, use their Sharia law, huh? Shit made up.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, come to find out, it ain't Sharia law, it's Roman civil law.
yeah, yeah. I never did get the four pillars of whatever that was. Sharia law is four pillars, but yeah, Article 3, Section 2, that's original jurisdiction over the people, and so these administrative clerks that call themselves judges in these state courts are de facto. It's irrelevant, and so basically every criminal prosecution is there has not been any good faith prosecutions. From what you just said, does that line up with a good faith prosecution of the state of Idaho? I had an idiot judge when I asked her who the injured party was. She told me the state. And so I told the judge, what was her name? I sued her in federal court, Judge Meredith. I'm like, okay, Your Honor, the state's the injured party. I says, are we in a state court or are we in a federal court? Oh, well, this is a state court. Well, if the state's the injured party and this is a state court, I think we need to go to a neutral venue. You know, the Separation of Power Act, provides that there not be this conflict of interest. So I'm going to motion to dismiss this. So because there's a conflict of interest. So I motioned to dismiss. She's like, denied. And I said, well, why are you denying it? She said, well, because I can. And it's funny, when she asked me why I was suing her, I said her the same thing, because I can.
Well,
And I sued her in federal court. And so, it's the stuff that's going on is just right out in the open.
yeah.
You've been teaching this stuff for years, some of the basic fundamental principles of law, and yet these prosecutors and these DAs, they're becoming judges. So you know what I mean? So it's almost like the courthouse is a bank, and the judges, they're the cash. What are they? They would be the clerks or the cashiers, right? The judges, they're administrative clerks. I don't know.
Again, this is all Roman civil law. We need to hammer this home and fully comprehend this, because that's what it is. I know people want to make up all this other stuff, but let's just tell the truth. Let's keep it simple. It's all Roman civil law. The courts, the legislative, executive, judicial, it's all functioning under Roman civil law, the code, not common law.
I've never heard anybody ever say that before. You're the first person I've ever heard say that. Where did you hear that from?
I read it right out of Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England, Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856, right from the Code of Civil Procedure Act of 1873 and 1881. I read it.
No, it was like a bell. It was like hitting a bell in my head when you told that to me for the first time. It was like, ding. I was like, oh, wow.
And see, and it's so just wild and outlandish, because it's the whole thing. The whole form of government has been, again, boxed up, put in the box, and here's the new box of government back under the monarchy, corporation, United States Inc., where here's the, pulling out Roman civil laws, the fundamental law. We don't recognize common law. We don't recognize your rights. We don't recognize the laws of nature. We don't recognize the law of nations. We don't recognize the Constitution, because that's a different form of government. This is what we're dealing with now, and I think it's just so overwhelming, because it's the whole thing that's been fundamentally altered.
And so in Christ's time, when he was on the earth, Caesar was the head of Rome, right? And that's why, Christ said, render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, because they were the governing authority of his day. Mm-hmm. Render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. But he says, but render unto God what belongs to God. And this is why the whole marriage license contract is. Why would you take what's belonged to God and give it to Caesar when that Caesar don't have jurisdiction over holy matrimony? That's a covenant. And then your preachers for years in the churches, in the 501c3 corporate churches, they've been teaching, well, Romans chapter 13 says, submit yourself unto governing authorities. Well, in a republic, who's the governing authority?
The people.
Yeah.
But where are all the people?
So why would you listen to Why would you listen to Nuisance, Governor Nuisance,
Yeah.
and listen to Officer Dipshit? What you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because your blinker light is out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt your day, and I'm working for a private corporation. I'm going to force you to contract with me, and then I'm going to take you in to where we don't even have jurisdiction, where we don't have an Article 3 judge at all. We're not Article 3, Section 2, and you're just going to consent to your straw man and your corporation, and you're going to go in and hand your left cheek and your right cheek, ass cheek to the judge because you're too afraid to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you start knowing this, you're empowered. You get boldened by knowledge. Even the Bible says, "My people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge." And so,
Yep.
when I'm walking before my public servants, it's like you're either a public servant or you're a corporate employee. If you want to claim public servant, then I'm going to treat you like one. That means I'm your boss.
Yeah.
Unless you just want to come out and say that you're just the employee of McDonald's or Burger King, because if you're going to claim something, then I'm going to treat you that way.
I mean, here's another thing, when you go into these courts and stuff, are they not wearing a black robe? Who wears black robes?
Satanists? I don't know.
The Roman Catholic Church.
Oh, do they? Red dress. We should say black dresses.
Black dresses, right? I mean, it's right in our face. They're wearing a black robe from the Roman Catholic Church, the Black Pope. A black dress.
I was reading this coordination stuff, and it's really all administrative law, which is very dry and boring.
Yeah.
I think the details is I would like to talk about how we could use it for another fake shutdown for the chemtrails. Like Idaho doesn't have this problem, but a lot of other states, people were getting arrested for exercising the fundamental rights to keep and bear arms, and then all of a sudden they're getting drug in and treating as persons and being charged with unauthorized, carrying of firearms.
Yeah.
And so people could create their own safety policy. How about with all these, criminals coming across the border? That's creating a safety crisis. People are getting killed left and right.
That's a foreign invasion. It's called what it is.
And it's also a safety. It's creating a safety risk to the environment, to the human environment, to the social environment, to the economic environment. So we can use coordination in these states that have red flag laws. We can stop these shutdowns. We can stop the chemtrails. We can stop, the federal government to tell the farmers that you can't have water. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're going to shut your water off. And how much of a policy is that to feed people? The Central Valley here in California is like feeding like the GNP of the gross national product is just outrageous. It's higher than certain countries in Europe. Just California alone, they're the breadbasket for the world, and they're fundamentally chiseling away, like they're burning down a lot of these food processing plants. They're just trying to kill the local farmer. It's just getting crazy. I was at the restaurant the other day. I was hearing,
they want us eating bioengineered food, bugs and chemically altered and infused food. Call it food. It's poison. But you want to do this coordination. It takes the people to come together. You got to peaceably assemble. We're gonna have to. Man, come on, people. It would be a lot better off if we just reassembled government de jure and took back our power, and we just kicked government de facto to the curb and be done with it. All of it, all at once, in one big fail swoop. Shut it all down.
You met David when you came out here to California, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he has these little gold bills. It's gold flat and so thin that it's like gold coated, this flat, and it's sealed in plastic, and you could bend it, and it's literally real money, according to the Constitution. It's either got to be backed by gold or silver itself.
Yeah, it's supposed to coin.
So when we assemble, why should we use these debt notes, right? We should be using real money.
We
if
should
we're going to
have
start.
coins that are gold and silver coin.
Well, this is kind of like it's real gold, but it's flat, not like a bill.
Right, but the
Because it's
Constitution says coin the money.
okay. Is that coin that we
Coin.
consider coin?
If it's made out of gold, it doesn't matter. It's still a coin. Whether
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
shaped in a rectangle or not. It's still made out of gold. It has its value. But see, it says that they're supposed to fix the weight and measure. Well, if you're going to fix something, as in what that means by fix it, as it affix it, put it in one position, set it at, which I've heard the rumored, and Trump even say it, it may be something like $40 an ounce of gold. Now, an ounce of gold is going to equate to $40. That's going to be its value. So think about that for just a minute.
So that increases the dollar then, pretty much,
Well,
because it's 2,000 an ounce now.
right. But that's getting away from the Federal Reserve notes, the fiat currency, and getting back to gold-backed currency.
When's the last time we had a gold or silver coin? Kennedy, right? Before Kennedy. So like a quarter, a 25-cent quarter was a quarter ounce of silver.
Right.
It wasn't pure silver,
Right.
but it was 70%. So a quarter of a dollar in Kennedy's era, meaning 4 quarters, would give you 1 full ounce. So if you divide a quarter ounce of silver now, that would be what? $5, right? Or $6. Is it up to 30? So each quarter
25, is it up to 30?
yeah, so what 25 cents was worth in Kennedy's in the 60s would now be worth $6. So the buying power of 25 cents would be $6 in our economy right now. That's how our our diminished our money is right now. You go to the supermarket, you can't get anything. You go one bag of food, it's $100 anymore. It's crazy because of these notes. We keep using these notes. It's insanity. Why are we using this? And you know about when you're paying a loan back, you can repay it back in like kind. So a lot of this stuff is negotiable instruments. They're promissory notes. So why can't we charge off these loans and pay them back with negotiable instruments? Because they're not loaning us money, right? And you return the loan with like kind. Like if you loan me 20 silver dollars, I'd have to pay you back 20 silver dollars. I'm not going to give you a $20 bill, right?
Right.
And so,
or the equal value of gold, right? Gold or silver. They both, if you fix the weight.
So why don't Idaho have an assembly conference where the people will assemble, and have a educational. It's just show up, guys. Show up and come in and take the oath, right? Can we get 100 patriots in Idaho to show up for a conference?
Well, again, all I need to do the state level is 35.
Well, let's get 100. Why just get 35?
Well, I mean, 100 would be great. Problem is finding a place for us all to go into one room and do all the proper paperwork. There's more than just the one covenant and oath. There's the declaration and all the stuff that's got to be published in the newspaper. It's got to be printed.
How about the Civic Center? It holds a lot of people. You can get one of those little small rooms for like $500. Or this guy here, he's taking a stance against this heterosexual awareness month down there at the Old State Saloon. I don't know how many people can fit in that, but Mark might be open to that.
Yeah.
And we could visit that if you want to come down there. I'll introduce you to him, the owner of that place.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do for next week because Monday Night Law, and you're going to be out there Monday nights, which
I'm going to be on Tuesday.
Well, you go on Monday and Tuesday.
No, Tuesday and Wednesday, 18th and 19th.
Okay.
Yeah, you sent me a text back. You're like, I got Monday Night Law. I'm like, well, I'm not doing it on Monday. It's Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's 7:30 to 9:30, and I'll introduce you to him because I'm just coming up for these 2 days, and then I'll be speaking at Victory Park in Pasadena on the 30th, and also Open the Heavens. This is with Juan O'Savin and SG Anon. We're going to be June 28th and 29th. I'll be down in San Diego. Well, it's called Spring Valley, California. Open the Heavens. That's Mary Crowley. Mary, Meri, Crowley, Crouley. This is our fourth one. We did the first one at Mount Rushmore. How cool was that? And so this is, so yeah, I'm kind of busy. I'm traveling all over the country right now, but, I want to back you up, Kirk, and endorse what you're doing in Idaho. And if I could help send people your way, let's do it. Let's get some of these business owners. We need to create, how about commerce? We should be bartering and creating Liberty Chamber of Commerce instead of giving all our money to these woke corporations and doing business with them. I mean, didn't they used to barter? That's what they did, was barter. They had outposts and they would trade, right? Barter and trade. It's like we're feeding this system that's destroying us. People can't afford to live anymore because they're in this system. Come out of me, come out of her, my people, and be ye separate from the Babylonian whore matrix. Yeah. We're sitting there enslaved by this monetary system and by these corporations. It's outrageous. Somebody's got to lead the way with that. And if the pastors would get on board, that would be a miracle too. But
yeah, well,
and maybe
the church. I've got some comments here. If you know people in Idaho that want to help reassemble government de jure in Idaho, Idaho de jure at protonmail.com. Send me a frickin' email. Introduce yourself.
Can you put that up on the screen?
Get on the national-assembly.net Thursday night call. Go to kirkslawcorner.com. Get on my social media. Send me a message. Send me an email.
Well, let's shoot for August. I mean, let's give people a couple months to get their poop in a group. And let's try to find a venue for August. And I'll just come back up there and support you for that. And that way we can lay it all out. I mean, would it be an all-day conference?
It really needs to be.
Or does it need to be a weekend? Does it need to be like a Saturday, Sunday, or? We could do church in the morning on Sunday, take a break, and do it Sunday afternoon too afterwards.
Right? Yeah, we could do Sunday afternoon. I'd have to get a hold of a venue. I guess it depends on if we do the Old State Saloon there, or we do Caldwell Church.
Pastor Bill, he's pretty flexible out there in Caldwell. Will that fit? Will that fit 100 people? That church?
I believe so.
Just make sure it's not snow when you do it.
You right?
My first conference, my first We the People Idaho, it was their national assembly. They have an assembly once a year. They all meet on one particular day or weekend. And that was the day that I picked my first We the People Idaho. And it was also the first day of opening for hunting season, for deer season.
Oh, and that's right.
And then,
I remember
and
that.
then there was a Boise home game that day too. All three of those events, I was like, oh, bent out of shape. I'm like, there's 75 people here. I mean, what's going on? And then everybody started telling me that, hey man, we got tickets to the football game. I'm going hunting. Our church is having their national convention today. I was like, let's do August. I don't think there's a holiday. Is there a holiday in August?
But, I want to point something out here. It's not as simple as just bringing 100 people together into a room and then just doing this. We have to vet these people. I'm not, with everything that we got going on, and this is part of what we discussed. I joined Jason in his hardline with Destry yesterday, and this is part of what we were talking about, is this infiltration. And, we're talking about how the FBI works, and we got all these dissenters and stuff out there. No. We can't afford to have corrupt individuals just walking in and being a part of this. Not going to happen. Not on my watch. Not here in Idaho. I will be vetting these people. So it's not as simple as, let's just go into a room with 100 people and everybody signs. No. Oh, hell no. We're going to have to meet. We're going to have to talk. Yeah. We're going to make sure that who you are, who you say you are. Right? And nobody that's done that American State National garbage, fraud, right? Because you can't. It's fraud. And it sets up a conflict because their ideology, which they don't even quite understand what they're doing, which I feel bad for those people that have been deceived by these people, is they're changing their status to the corporation. They don't get it. It's under the Roman civil law, the code, Roman civil law. So you're actually putting yourself in to the monarchy, into the code, into the Roman civil law. Not
doesn't she work for the Catholic
law,
Church?
The Republic. You're being deceived. So you can't be a part of this.
You know, it's crazy you mentioned the Roman civil law. You know, the Roman Catholic Church, their baptismal. I lost my Social Security card as a teenager. I was like 19 years old in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I didn't have any ID. And I went down to called the Social Security office, and they says, well, do you have a baptismal certificate from the Catholic Church? They accepted if you got baptized in your Baptist church or your Presbyterian church and you went down with your baptismal certificate, they would throw it in the garbage. They're like, we can't accept this. But from the Roman Catholic Church, your baptismal certificate is a legal document because we're using Roman civil law, right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Just these little tidbits, little signs, right?
Yeah, it's I believe Trump is for real. I might not agree with everything, but I really believe that he does want to give the power back to the people, but the people have to do their part. And that means, you know what? Cancel your stupid same old Bible study that you've been going to for the last 25 years and show up at a Liberty meeting. You know, I get so many people there. Well, my knitting group meets on that day, so I've been doing that for 20 years. So sorry, I can't make it. Our country's burning to the freaking ground.
Yeah.
Screw your little meeting that you've been. It's great that you have loyalty and that you have integrity, that you show up and fulfill your promises, but take a day off and show up at an event. Cancel your whatever you're doing. People were so loyal to their own blindness, follow a guy off a cliff or something. It's, you know what? And people were like, well, you're so intense, Tony. Why are you so intense? If the house is on fire, what are you going to do? Tell everybody, hey, why don't you guys, if you guys feel like coming out of the house, we're going to breathe some clean air out here. And we're just going to sit out there and put out the fire. No, get the F out of the house. It's burning down. You'd be screaming and yelling. Our country's literally burning to the ground. And everybody's going on vacation. I don't know, man. I'm too, I pledged my life, fortune, and sacred honor to this adventure, man. And I'm expecting other people to at least put their John Hancock on a document and sue somebody or something.
Something.
I mean, it gets exhausting when you feel like you're running into battle like that guy in the Bible, Uriah. He's running into battle and all the troops pull back and he turns his back and he gets killed on the front lines. You know what I mean? Because I think King David got his wife pregnant, right? So he kind of set him into battle by himself. But anyways, I like using these biblical references. It's a point of reference that everybody could look at and get my point. But yeah, I mean, some days I get exhausted, Kirk, because I'm trying to do so much because so much needs to be done. And like Tom Fenton, everybody's like, why do we want to use attorneys? Tom Fenton's not an attorney. Look what he's doing in Judicial Watch. He hires attorneys.
Yes.
But look what Lloyd Brunson did. He's not an attorney. I mean, we can do this. And everybody wants to give $25,000 to an attorney. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then now you just considered yourself an imbecile, an award of the state once you do that.
But just like everything else, people are going to have to learn the law. They're going to have to learn, educate, get educated. Knowledge is power. Without knowledge, we can't do jack.
Well, if attorneys and politicians have destroyed this country, why do we think voting for more politicians and hiring more attorneys is going to fix it? It's insanity.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We need to educate ourselves, right? We're going to have to learn. Knowledge is power. My people shall perish for lack of knowledge. Who is responsible for our own education? I mean, honestly, answer that question, Tony. Who is responsible for our own education?
We are.
We are. We
That's why you
cannot
don't have
blame
someone
anybody else
you.
for our lack of knowledge.
I want
in this day and
somebody
age,
to represent me.
In this day and age of the information highway, known as the World Wide Web, the internet, whatever, there is no reason why people can't read something. Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bills of Rights, I mean, state constitution, I mean, come on.
I was upset. The first time I read the Bible, I was extremely pissed off. And the first time I read the Constitution, I was extremely pissed off. I'm like, what the hell is everybody doing? It's right here in black and white.
Yes. It's in writing.
Reading it's a superpower. Reading is a superpower. Take back your power. What does reading mean, Kirk?
Reading means reading.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, no wonder they have people graduating a high school that can't even read. So anyways, you got any questions for Juan O'Savin? I'm going to be hanging out in the green room with him. Unless you want to come down to San Diego, you can ask him yourself. Because, Kirk and I have been having discussions, and I've been having a hard time with the plan. And just certain things, just everything that's going on. I mean, I understand that there are things happening behind the scenes right now. And, there's people, white hats, trying to restore the republic. But my big problem is while we're waiting for that, there's things we could be doing locally. Why sit around and wait for the rapture and let the world go to hell? That's another doctrine in Christianity where just, people just want to sit back and wait for Jesus to return while their neighborhoods burn to the ground. No, people need salvation. People need liberty. We need to be liberating people on a local level. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr., he got people to do it peacefully. I mean, he mobilized and unified people. And even if he was being used, by the establishment, he did bring people together. And so the problem is we're too independent as Americans, and we don't want to be interdependent. I don't want to take off a weekend and fly to Boise, Kirk, because, I like my independence. And I like to do what I want to do. I don't want to be interdependent and actually need the guy next to us. We need leadership to mobilize and unify people. And I haven't figured that out yet. I haven't been able to do it. And it's not like I want to lead, because anybody that's leading is on the first. You're putting a bullseye on your head if you're leading in this movement.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what? So I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to put the bullseye. I'm willing to sign the documents. I'm willing to sue these public officials and do these petitions and remonstrances. We need people. We need finances. We need, we need funding. This stuff is, you know what? I'm cutting trees down. I'm painting, and I should be on this stuff 24/7, but I'm unable to do it.
Yeah, and like I've said this before, you got people out there that don't want to do anything and have a little bit of money there. We'll donate some money to people like Tony and myself that are doing something.
Yeah, California. I'd prefer to labor in Idaho, to be honest with you, because it's just if Californians will fight for their liberty like they fight for every piece of blacktop on Highway 99, when you're driving down 99, you could have like a half a car length open between you and the guy in front of you, and someone will try to squeeze in front of you. It's like, let's fight for our liberty like that. Let's quit consenting to these felons They
Yeah.
are felons. They're criminals, these politicians, and they're dictating how you should live your life when we should be putting them in jail or taking their houses away from them. I think it's
Yeah.
doable.
I think it just the people have to come to a certain point where they're so destitute. They go, "What can we do?" Then you pretty much have to hand it to them on a silver platter because there's no other
Well,
option.
well, I guess we haven't suffered enough as a nation because there is a movement right now, but we need to unify the movement.
Is
The
that like a
religious.
bowel movement or?
Well, I'm seeing two streams right now. There's a revival movement. There's a spiritual awakening that's happening to people where they're looking past all the lies that they've been taught their whole lives. And then there's a consciousness awakening in the liberty movement too. So we got these two different streams, and then they're starting to
Right.
merge together.
Right.
And that's
And I'm seeing it too. I'm starting to see more and more people, which is in essence what I've tried to explain about what's actually been going on, especially since the fraudulent election there. This is all just a show to wake people up. People have to feel it. And
like you can't tell people.
I'm seeing a lot, even tonight, seeing new people making comments out here. And trust me, I'm seeing you folks show up. I even see people make comment, "Hey, I'm new here, first time here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for turning off your TV and finding something better to do that's for the betterment of not only yourself, but for society as a whole by being here. Even if it's only you only take one tiny little thing away from one show tonight or something from tonight each time you watch. Okay? That's one tiny step closer to being a little bit more powerful. Knowledge. Learning what to do. You got to learn first. Like working on a car or baking a cake. That's one I like to use, baking a cake. You got to read the directions. Follow the directions. Well, that's like the Constitution. Constitution's the directions. Declaration of Independence. That's part of the directions. Those are, in essence, things not to do, that are not Republican in character and conduct. Those are declared acts of tyranny. Those are indicators of what doesn't belong in our republic. Things that have been fought against. Taken up arms, like the Declaration for the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms. Okay? What was the causes? Interdicting all commerce unto the people, subjecting us to a jurisdiction foreign to our form of government, unacknowledged by our law. That's the Roman civil law, the code. That's what they were talking about. They took up arms against that crap. Where are we at, folks?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we could do this civilly, that we wouldn't have to take up arms. Like I drained my local swamp over there in Western Pennsylvania. It's funny how I used Roman Civil Code, 14th Amendment, actually to force mass resignations and remove 11 out of 12 people in office. Protests were involved. We had to get up, go to these county supervisor meetings and rail them in public. We filed state lawsuits, we filed federal lawsuits, and actually Chris had paperwork on Bill Barr's desk and Maxine Waters' desk for criminal emolument investigations. So not only are we going to hit them, with these federal torts, but these Title 42s, they're called civil rights lawsuits, which I don't believe it's civil rights, but it's kind of a quasi case. And even if it's below the line, we're suing them in federal court, and we go to how about going to the legislature on the same issues? So we're hitting them in two different branches of government. And like you've been saying for years, file criminal complaints. Let's get it in all three branches. Let's get it in the executive, do the judicial, and in the legislative branches on the same subjects. You know what I mean? So, of course, mail the governor, mail the secretary of state, your grievance, but hit all three. And then, what that's going to take? Man hours to do that, bro. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We need interns. We need paralegals. We need funding. Dude, you wouldn't believe how many reams of paper I've went through probably in ink just in the last couple months. I mean, it's just crazy. because I'm printing this stuff up and I'm taking these packets and passing them out, as something that I could try to raise money with, I know I give them the digital copies, but it's like a point of reference of looking at the paper. But it does cost money to do this stuff. So I hope you get some good donations today, brother, because I appreciate. I mean, you've been committed. Like remember when we were doing the ACLA from
Yep.
those days? It's like then talk to Kirk for about 6 or 7 or 8 months, and then all of a sudden we meet up, and I hear you speak, and I'm like, what have you been doing? Reading for 24 hours a day for the last 6 months? I was like, what the heck did you do? What happened to Kirk, man? Did you get a brain transplant? Not that, you've always been a smart guy, but I couldn't believe how you exceeded like the rest of the group just because you applied yourself
Right.
and put in the time. It's called paying the price. If you want to be a professional football player, you're going to be working your whole entire life on your gifting. And some people are gifted with, a gift of understanding and knowledge. And you got to have a pair of balls to do this too, what we're doing. So, but yeah, I share that story with certain people. It was like, yeah, Kirk and I, well, we were kind of clashing at the ACLA, and he started doing his own thing. Next time I saw him, I'm just like, wow, he just went. Hey, Kirk, wait up for me, dude. Can you explain that again?
Reading means reading, brother.
No, I mean, you've been putting in the time, and it is. It's like if you were gonna be wrenching on cars, what you did when you had your secular job, your marketplace job, you were making money doing that. It's just like some days I'm thinking if I was a painting contractor, I would be making more money than I'm making now. But I'm not going to do it. I'm called to this. And if the money's there, it's there. If it's not, I have to suck it up. But we have to win some of these multi-million-dollar lawsuits too. Like a false claims act against Pfizer would be a good one, right? Against the FDA. How much would that bring in? Billions?
I don't know. What are the actual damages?
I mean, it's basically false claim. It's fraud. They called it a vaccine. It never was a vaccine. And everybody similarly situated that were injured by all their fraud from the CDC and the FDA. And then when the person who brings the claim gets 1/3 of it, right? The award. So what would the award be against the FDA and the CDC by working in concert with Pfizer and Moderna to poison a billion people and to cause the livelihood of, I mean, how many billions would that false claim act bring in?
Well, it depends on how much money was allocated to them for their research or for any of that. Again, the actual damages. How much money came out of the coffers there to fund it, and how much money needs to be paid back, recuperated, for fraud, basically.
No, when you called me about that, you mentioned that to me. I was like, I had looked up the definition and the conditions of the false claim. When you said that, I'm like, you know what? That's a monumental task. You're going to need a team of people doing that one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get up there with Boise and join you and get up there. I'm just, I feel like I have a mission here. California isn't the political environment that I'd like to be in. It's a beautiful state. I love the state here. There's great people here, but it's a different level of front lines. I'm fighting that transgenderism over here, gender bender agenda. And it's disgusting that they want to chop off the penis of a 12-year-old and do a mastectomy and cut the breast off of a 12-year-old girl because they don't know who they are at that age. And it's like, I went around this town, bro, and I started to try to recruit pastors before I did the Remonstrance. I'm like, I'm trying to get pastors. Hey, pastors, are you in agreement with 12-year-old kids shutting their penises off, or the state taking them because your parishioners, your Christian parents, their Christian beliefs don't believe in switching your gender? Do you guys think you can support me, or can we all come together? They're like, God's not calling me to that. Okay. I mean, I couldn't get 4 or 5 pastors to agree. I got one pastor. Everybody else they're afraid to lose their 501c3 nonprofit status because the
Right.
IRS is the head of their church, not Jesus Christ. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yep.
I'm just saying it like it is, just like everything's incorporated, you know, the state of Idaho, the county of Ada, the health department, all of them. It's all corporations. It's crazy. It's just in how much truth can you absorb in one day? I mean, people are going to have to go back and watch this again, huh?
Yeah. I know it's like, I've talked to a couple of people again here recently, and they're like, man, it's like when I start laying things out and sharing my knowledge, it's like drinking from a fire hose. And I'm like, well, I get it. I do. And, for the most part, when I do my shows, I slow it down. I try to break it down so grandma can understand it. But when I'm sitting here talking with somebody and I've got, 1 hour to talk to them, I mean, you're going to get the fire hose from me. Because I'm not going to mince words. I'm going to be straight to the point and speak the law as it is written.
What year did we do Law for Dummies? Remember we did that 1 hour show way back in the day on Blog Talk?
Yeah, Blog Talk Radio. I mean, that was, what, 2014, 15, and part of 16.
Yeah, that was a while ago. And that's what it was called, Law for Dummies. Not everybody knows the law. You have to learn it.
Yeah.
At least the fundamental law, which you're saying we don't need to know all this Roman code. We don't need 20,000 revised statutes for the state of Idaho. You don't need to know that.
Nope. And I spent a lot of years doing that, studying the code stuff and, trying to battle it out with them. And, even then I still was able to kind of win a little bit. But, yeah, it's much more powerful learning, like, the laws of nature, the law of nations, Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England. I mean, I'm still kicking myself in the ass because I didn't read Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England before the Bruin case. And that, again, this is the case that prompted me. I was like, well, if they're going to cite it as a fundamental source of law regarding the law of nature and as a fundamental right to keep and bear arms, all right, maybe I should break down and read this thing. Because like I've said before, I had Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England for a few years prior to all this. I was reluctant to read it because it was England. And I just had that, adverse reaction.
Well, where was the Magna Carta at? What country did that come from?
Great Britain. England.
Yeah, and so that's all succession of law. Well, where did biblical law come from? It came from, Jerusalem, right? Israel.
Well, you're going to be more of an
Commandments.
authority on that than me.
Well, it's the Ten Commandments, so it's that's where the law was given. To the law of Moses was thou shalt not kill, mandatory language, right? Don't be sleeping with your neighbor's wife. Don't be stealing. Don't murder. Even the Bible says there's a time to kill, Ecclesiastes 3:3, but that's not murder. If you have to kill in self-defense, there's a time to kill. And I think that's what happened in 1776. The ministers put down their Bibles and grabbed their muskets. It says there's a time to, there's a time to kill and a time to let live. But such a time it's a time to kill. They were raping their wives and their children. Yeah. And now they're doing it sophisticatedly through CPS. We're gonna sneak in there at your house and grab your baby or your child away. Then we're gonna go let a bunch of molesters adopt your children. I mean, that's not how it was settled in the Wild West or back in 1776. But we have to be civil about this if we need to. But how many horror stories do you hear about family court? I sure miss Chris Hallett, bro. I mean,
I do too.
But you know what? We're part of his legacy. Some of the stuff that he taught us, and I know we were all teaching each other back in the day. But I would love to travel and just get people to file remonstrances in every state.
You
We
mean
should all be,
petitions?
yeah, all doing that. And so, how about these spending bills? Couldn't you use a remonstrance to stop giving $200 million to Pakistan for transgender studies? I mean,
Absolutely. Now that's the
so
timing for a remonstrance, is in the middle of
yeah,
making that legislation.
exactly. And that's why I went after AB 957, transgender affirmation. It wasn't passed when I was fighting it. But, I had to spend $10 for certified mail to 39 senators. That wasn't cheap, you know. So that's another thing. What we're funding is if you're putting your legislative body or your Senate on notice, you want to do, proper service. You want to get their signature and have due process, sufficiency of service, sufficiency of process, and there's funding for that too. So yeah, we need to step it up and multiply ourselves, bro. We
Yeah.
need to start creating missions in form of educational materials and get people signed up. But it's all time and energy and money. But it's
And
part of my
reading.
vision. It's part of my vision. I know I can't do everything, but you know what? We can teach a group of people. You know what they asked Billy Graham at the end of his life? If you had to do it over again, that guy led millions to Christ, right?
Right.
One of the greatest preachers in our country, and some people might disagree, but the point I'm making is his answer was, if I had to do it all over again, I would find 12 candidates that were worthy, and I would pour my life into them and train them. And then that way he multiplied himself by 12 times.
Right.
And so that's why education and creating syllabuses and stuff like this, everybody has different gifts. Some people have administrative giftings that they can help us put together educational packets and syllabuses. I don't have time to go around and edit documents all day long. I mean, I'm just too busy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm managing the 9 federal lawsuits, to a remonstrance, a petition, and I'm also suing a senator right now. I mean, I'm swamped, But
Nah,
but
you could take on more.
I've been trying to do this Title 42 law school for 2 years, and I keep on flaking on it because I'm too busy. To walk people from the lawful notification letter all the way to trial. If you need to go to a jury trial, to walk them, that's like 43 steps that I came up with from the lawful notification letter to where you get to the jury trial. It's quite a journey if you go, but you're not always going to have victories in court. You'll have people that will settle, that will back down, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And declaratory relief to get a declaration in the form of a court order is huge. How about Peterson versus Peterson? How important of a declaration was that?
Well,
They basically said code is not law. I mean, that's important to express our point.
well, and it exposes that the Code Commission, which is what he's saying there, that the Idaho Code is not the law, and the Code Commission has no legislative authority. But it gets explained away as, well, it's a compilation. It's not a codification of a statute. It's just a compilation of the statutes. Well, BS, because when we look at legislation, it says, be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Idaho to amend the Idaho Code. So why is the legislature making amendments to the Idaho Code if the Idaho Code is not the law? Then why is the legislature making amendments to it? And it's just a compilation of the where's the statutes? Again, this is all Roman civil law, the code.
And the code, I can
Plain and simple.
consent
There's
to
no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no getting around this. There's no explaining it away. It is what it is.
Well, I'm just telling you what I consent to. When I'm driving through a crosswalk, the Department of Motor Vehicle Code says to go 15 miles an hour when you're in an elementary school crosswalk where there's kids around. It's common sense. And so if there's a code that is common sense, then I can, because we're the government of the consent. So if somebody wants to come up with a policy or a code that's for the benefit of other people, then I can consent to it. But if it's ridiculous and violating my rights and stealing money out of my pocket, I'm not consenting to that. I'm not voluntarily paying taxes that are not mandatory. I haven't done it, and I'm not doing it anymore. I haven't done it since 1999. It's fraud. And people wonder why. Well, I'm praying to God that my finances get better. Well, quit giving half your paycheck to a corporation, right? You know, you can fill out that paperwork and say I'm exempt. You know, you don't have to claim dependence.
Yeah. That I was just talking about that the other day. Is that, you know, the W-4 form? I just filled it out exempt from taxes. No state or federal taxes were taken out. Imagine that. It's volunteer, right? We volunteered to pay. That's the contract. The W-4 form is the contract that you're agreeing to volunteer to pay those taxes.
Fear. That's how they enforce this.
But you got to fill this out. Well, okay. If I have to fill it out, that makes that contract void for any effect from inception, because it's fraud. It's obtained under fraud, under duress, coercion. But you can fill it out and say, well, I'm exempt. I don't consent to paying taxes. I don't volunteer. But I don't talk about this stuff very much because, you know, that's private life stuff, and all it does is, you know, bring up other issues with other people that might be watching. But I don't know.
Well,
I see the writing on the wall. I know that you and I don't really see eye to eye on a lot of that stuff, but I see the writing on the wall. I've watched this stuff unfold, being laid out, and it's happening. And it's coming, folks. This whole shit show's coming to an end. Executive Order 13818. This is a military operation. We are under a continuity of government. That's factual. Has been proven. I've showed it on the screen. I've showed the documents. I've read from the documents. I've laid it out there several times. It's even in my educational series.
Do you think things are going to get uglier, though?
How much uglier do you think it needs to get? It's pretty damn ugly out there. Foreign invasion, fraud on election fraud. We got a bunch of child pedophile rapists, Satanists out there. You know, we've got biolabs creating bioweapons.
Maybe they'll start using some more of those dues. I mean, how about Hawaii? That was an act of war. Yeah. You know what happened in Maui? What happened in Paradise, California? I was up there in Ground Zero doing a Facebook Live, looking at a wooden mailbox next to a foundation of a house that was burned to the ground, and the bark 10 feet away on the tree was intact. Oh, it was not a forest fire.
The plastic trash can right there next to the tree, the shrub.
Yeah, and how about aluminum melting over there in Maui? Aluminum rims were melted, but yet the blacktop pavement that melts at 400 degrees. Aluminum is like 1100 degrees, right? Or something crazy. Yeah. It's just, it was not a fire.
But it didn't melt a plastic trash can, the mailbox, or even that tree that was right there by the mailbox.
But it was a
and
forest
again,
fire.
This is the man, Tony Pellegrino, that was in California at the time and literally went down the road and videoed this stuff. So Tony has firsthand knowledge, fact, was there, saw it with his own eyes, recorded it with his own camera. So this isn't CGI, this isn't something just made up. I mean, I have no reason to believe Tony would lie to us.
Well, I did a live. The live was, you know what, that whole Facebook page, after I did We the People Idaho 3, I think the third annual one, they vaporized my Facebook account. It was gone. And then they did that hit piece on me. And it's just crazy.
Yeah. Anything to try and divert people from learning from us or listening to us.
So you're still on YouTube, right?
Yeah. YouTube, Facebook, Rumble. Now on X, Twitter, X, Telegram. I know.
So how about the
I
FBI?
should get on that TikTok, but yeah,
TikTok is. I saw one of your videos on TikTok, man. It blew up. It went viral.
yeah,
What the caption was, they didn't know who you were, but they listened to what you said. They says, "We found ourselves a lawyer."
yeah. That was the 3-minute addressing the legislature and asking them to do an investigation that this whole COVID thing, proclamation declaring a state of emergency, was all subversion of law, and that that the governor was exercising powers that properly belong to the legislative branch. He was supposed to call in a special session to deal with this emergency pursuant to Article 4, Section 9. So why didn't he do that? Per the Idaho Constitution. And, that this all leads to treason, that this was a sham, that we've all been, injury by fellow servant. Do you think they did anything about it? No.
Well, I guess we have to do something about it. Like, I think it came out now where the federal government was putting pressure on Facebook to ban certain content. Mm-hmm. So now it's official. They've come out because of the congressional hearings, mm-hmm. and they basically said, yes, we were told to not allow certain content. So now you got Facebook working in concert with public officials to deprive you of your First Amendment right of free speech, right? So two mm-hmm. elements of Title 42, somebody working under color of law and somebody depriving rights. And you have those two elements right there, because then Facebook worked in concert. So pretty much everybody who was censored or being shadow banned, we know where it's coming from. So we have the congressional record. So then we go in and use that. And then we get subpoena power to get the rest of the evidence to find out who the freak the fact checkers were, because I'm going to sue their asses too. There's a paper trail or digital trail to everybody. Whoever freaking banned my crap, dude, I'm coming after your house. You worked in concert with the FBI to freaking suppress my free speech.
Choose your battles, bro. I know. I mean, you already got enough on your plate, but
I know that would be. That would be about a 300-400 ban hour lawsuit there.
Right.
Just to get going. But anyways, no, I'm just saying there's so many causes of action. Pick your poison. I'm trying to motivate other people and explain that to them. Maybe someone else will sue Facebook, and maybe I can help them do it. Who knows?
Well, you're welcome on my show every once in a while, whenever you got time.
Do you know that there's 24 federal lawsuits against Allegheny County in Pennsylvania right now? All from my conference, from my conferences over there.
Awesome.
So I did these conferences, and they had one group of 15 that did one, and then the judge. This is the prosecutors, the wisdom of there. Well, we're severing these cases. They can't sue together as a group without an attorney. So that one case with 15 litigants now have 15 cases because they thought they were all just going to fold. Right. No, they just all went sui juris, and now there's 15 just from that one group, and then there's a group of another 5 people who were they were prison guards that got fired for not getting the vax, and then so that's 20, and then there was other 3 prison guards that didn't want to be part of the group, and then there was an individual from Parks and Recreation. So they all have 24. I'm not managing them all, but I guess I'm responsible for 24 federal lawsuits, all at least $2 million. Maybe I'll get some socks for Christmas this year or something if they win. We'll see.
Well, at least some people are taking some action, right?
That's it.
Putting them in the hot seat.
Taking responsibility for their administrative duties, right?
Shake them up a little bit, right?
Yep. And so if one person can make a difference, and that's, you know what I mean? Didn't Carter Miller say that grabbed you when you watched him back in the day? Like, what did he say? someone has to do that. Why don't you be that someone? Didn't Carl Miller
Oh,
say
Carl
something
Miller
like that?
said, well, somebody ought to do something about that. Be a somebody. Do something about it. It's like, hey, my house is on fire. Somebody ought to put that fire out. Yeah, you should do something about that. Put the fire out.
Yeah, I want to encourage people to stand up, and just do what you can do. And if you can't do
Yeah.
something, then help somebody else do something. You can help. You can finance, show up for Liberty meetings. Just even start studying the Constitution in your living room, and then get that group to come on after they learn a little bit. Yeah, tell them to start coming on your show, or watch your show basically, and get really educated. Learn the basics. I think some people that join in probably might feel a little lost at the level that you're at, but I think you break it down. But dude, I'm clearing rooms. People can say the last 5 minutes that you were talking to me, Tony, I only got about 1 out of 5 words. So can you say that again?
Well, and the thing
we're
is,
just so used to talking this stuff, you get so used to it.
But I do. I break it down so Grandma can understand. That's how I originally got started with Blog Talk Radio. Randall Stone talked about that when I talked to him for 3.5 hours on the phone, and I was laying some of this stuff out, and he's like, "Man, you're saying stuff I've never heard before, and you're breaking this stuff down so Grandma can understand it. How'd you like to have your own radio show?" That's how I got started when I was running my own mechanic shop. Okay? That's how I got started in this, folks. I felt the calling, and I followed it, and, God had to give it a little push. My back started giving out, and body starting to, really feel the pain of physical labor for my whole life. So that's kind of what it took for me to pull away from that and focus on this. So
one of my guys over here from this group over here, they're going to start doing the UCC1 lanes. What is your opinion on that? I've never got involved in that. I know Bob Foy hit the tax assessors over there at Ada County, and that stirred up a hornet's nest. I don't want to get into that on the show, how that got blown up. But filing liens on individuals, that really doesn't hurt the corporate body of corruption, does it? I mean, it affects the individual, right? But you're hitting them in the private when you do that, right? When you put a lien on somebody.
Yeah. But see, there's, this goes through loss prevention or risk management. You're supposed to give them notice first. And you have to, I've done the research on this stuff. I have a nice thick frickin' packet that I put together, I made specific for Idaho. And it's through the UCC, doing all the filings and the, every time out of UCC1. Well, UCC1 comes later. Okay, that's for when you go to transfer property. Because there is no money. So this is why they want us to title and register all of our property. Our homes, the land, your cars and trucks and campers and boats, and everything's titled and registered. Is so that it can be transferred because there is no money. So, yeah, it can be done that way. Right? But like the bonds for the wind stuff, there is, bonds are insurance. Right? So, can an insurance company cover a man taking his car and running it into the bank and then robbing the bank and running out of there? Will the insurance company cover the damage to the car? No. Because an insurance company can't cover criminal activity.
Oh, okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because that's why it's called an accident, right? It was no criminal intent.
Bingo. That's why they call it an accident. Because it wasn't done on purpose. So, the same thing with bonding a public servant. They can't cover criminal conduct. So when you do the little process there and you give notice under risk management, and they look at it and go, oh, well, that's criminal activity. We don't cover that. Now, that puts them outside the umbrella and removes their immunity from being sued. But see, in essence, this is actually a common law process, but they're utilizing the Uniform Commercial Code to achieve it. So you do, basically, it's a lawful notification letter, and you default them 30, 60, 90 days. Hey, pay the bill, dude. Pay the bill, dude. Pay the bill, dude. After I've given you, this is the rule of 3. After I've given you the opportunity, I've given you notice and the opportunity to pay the debt that you owe me, settle this privately. After the third and final notice, 90 days, each one is 30-day notice, and they don't offer to settle, right? No response, specifically no response, right? And they don't pay, then you go in and you do the specific is a UCC4 or whatever, the search for everything that they have that's already titled and registered. Then you do the UCC1 claim to transfer everything for the amount that they owe you. You've perfected your claim against them, and they've refused to pay you, so now I'm going to take your shit. Because that's how the Uniform Commercial Code works, and the common law works that way as well. You know, a lot of people don't understand that the common law is quite ruthless. You learn how to do this through the common law way of things. Yeah. It doesn't happen like some of the ways the things are happening today. We straight up just take your stuff. Writ of possession. There's writs from the common law. So, anyways, we're about an hour over time tonight, but it was great.
Yeah, my battery's dead. It's going dead. I got 2% left. I have it plugged in. It's just draining. I don't know why.
Because you don't have it on a good enough charger, or the cord. The cord isn't.
Yeah.
You have a cheesy cord or a cheesy charger. Either one of those will cause it not to maintain.
I'm on a cheesy iPad, so that's it. Probably.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, Kirk. And like I said, I'll be at the Old State Saloon up in Eagle on the 18th and 19th, and hopefully Mark will let you follow up kind of where I leave off, because I'll be heading back out of town, and maybe that could be a platform for you, because he's interested in some stuff. So
yeah, I saw that. So it'd be interesting to talk with him. So we'll see how that all plays out. But I look forward to seeing you, brother. It'd be great to see you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you, bro. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Much love, brother, and thank you for being here tonight. And real quick, your website again.
It's aclg-liberty.com. And my email is acla@yahoo.com. Not ACLU. That's the Antichrist Lovers Unite. That would not be me. It's acla@yahoo is my email.
So instead of American Common Law Academy, it's American Common Law Group -Liberty.
America's Constitutional Law Group. Yeah, that's the ACLG. That's the website. Yeah, check it out, Kirk, and we'll have to have some of your. You have to shoot me some of your videos.
Yeah,
we need to get you an editor, full-time editor, to start chopping up some of your stuff, where you can get it on TikTok. That stuff takes a lot of work to edit videos. But much love back to you, bro. And my battery's dying here.
All right, brother. Well.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks, Kirk.
Yep. You too. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show here tonight. It was nice to have Brother Tony on with me tonight. He just hit me up this morning. Hey, you want me to come on and talk about coordination and stuff? And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's have you on there. And it's funny, I was just talking to Jason with his hardline. And I kind of miss having Chris, having somebody else on here with me, and then Tony pops up and sends me a message, calls me, saying, yeah, okay, well, why not, So good times with my brother Tony here. We've been hanging out for quite a few years now. It's been almost 10 years. Good times, though. So, hope you all enjoyed it tonight. And again, national-assembly.net, Thursday night calls there. Get on that website and, get signed up on there under your state. Get into the chat in there and introduce yourself into your state. Connect with people from your state, your territory. So, other than that, if anybody'd like to, donations over there, even to Tony Pellegrino, get a hold of us. For me, go to kirkslawcorner.com there, and the address is there. Either through Patreon, you can do through Patreon a one-time thing and just cancel that, or you can do a monthly subscription. Tier 1, $5 a month. Tier 2, $10 a month to help support over here. Help pay the bills. Or you can send over through the snail mail any postal money orders, regular money orders, checks, cash wrapped in aluminum foil, gold or silver coinage, anything like that over to the office there, 6477 West Fairview Avenue, Boise, Idaho. Suite G as in golf. Boise, Idaho 83704. I want to thank those that have given previous donations, and thank those that are currently in Patreon for your support. And get in if you want to get in on the Wednesday night workshop. Wednesday nights. If you're looking for my individual, looking for help from me, that's Tier 4, one-on-ones. Get signed up with that and read the Patreon there on the main pinned post. Go through Calendly and set that up for the one-on-ones. All right? God bless America. God bless